before we get started here with our session, folks, I'll do an acknowledgement of our traditional lands. So at Royal Roads University, we acknowledge our campus is located on the traditional lands of the Lekwungen peoples, the Songhees and the Esquimalt First Nations. We are grateful, of course, that we now learn and work here, where the past, present, and future of Indigenous and non-Indigenous students, faculty, and staff come together. So thank you all for being with us today. Okay, folks, and the reason that we're here, of course, is to dive into learning into action and explore our Master of Arts in Justice Studies. I'm pleased to be joined by some fine folks here today. We have Dr. Kathleen Manion, who's the program head of this program. Then we also have our wonderful alum. We have Hiyat Mitchell, Yang and Lis Kingsley, who are some alumni from the program. And then, like I mentioned, my name's Ariane. I'm an education specialist here at Royal Roads. Okay, so just a quick agenda as we move along here. So I'll kick us off with a brief overview of the Royal Roads experience. We'll get into just a few details about the program in case you're curious. We'll dive into our alumni experiences, of course, and then touch on admissions and how to apply. And if you have questions, you can ask those throughout in the chat. And you may ask yourself, why consider Royal Roads compared to all, of course, the other universities that are out there? I just want to share some quick alumni statistics with you. I know we'll hear about our alumni experience in just a bit, but we did a little survey recently, and it says 93% of our alumni say that RRU has positively influenced their personal and professional lives, along with 92% say that they felt supported by staff and faculty. 90% say that we provided them with the tools and knowledge required for leadership roles in the workplace. And 89% say that we provided them with the tools and knowledge needed to be innovative in the workplace. So all important things. As a previous student of Royal Roads myself, I can confirm those are all indeed true. And just a few photos of our space. So we have Hatley Castle. You may have seen this building in films. So many like X-Men and Deadpool have been filmed here throughout the years. So that is located on our campus. We also have a variety of gardens and green space. So you'll see just to the right of that, we have our Japanese garden, just one of many, over 260 hectares of gardens and green space here that we have. We also have our Esquimalt Lagoon. So you'll see just to the bottom left, we have a migratory bird sanctuary on campus. It's very beautiful as well. We've also been doing our online and blended learning styles for almost 30 years. I've been saying 25, but I realize I should upgrade that. So it's almost 30. And we've been doing that as well. So just a little homage to that in the bottom right hand corner of your screen. And we're also proud, of course, to be a certified Ashoka U Changemaker campus. Ashoka U is an innovative approach to education that prepares students as they address world problems, encourage others, and act for the good of all. Okay, so at this point, I will pass it off to Kathleen, who will take us through some program information. Take it away.
Sure. I'm going to try and be brief because I'm very excited to have this group of people here today. It's such an exciting mix of past students. They've done some amazing things in the program, before the program, and continue to do some amazing things. But let me just give you a little bit of an overview of the MA in Justice Studies. The concept of justice, I guess, is a contentious one in contemporary political dialogue. We're hearing a lot about it. And I think it is quite an emotive concept. I think that is really useful fodder for diving deeply into understanding what justice is, because we tend to focus on the corollary of justice, that is injustice. But justice, I maintain, is a social glue that holds our societies together. And I think as such, it is a really important philosophical concept for us to dig into. And this program is a space to do that. We have an undergraduate degree in Justice Studies, and that has traditionally and continues to focus on a variety of disciplines, law and a range of social sciences, human services, and philosophy to try and unpack and understand justice studies. When we were envisioning this MA in Justice Studies, we wanted to take that a step further and to be able to delve even further into that space and pay attention to and be mindful of the interdisciplinary aspects of justice studies and the different ways of understanding justice and injustice from different disciplines, but take it a step further and understand, how do you weave those concepts, those different disciplines and understandings together to be more than the sum of its parts. And that's what we hope to do here in the MA in Justice Studies, is to create a container for students to come into the space, bring their knowledge, their experience, but also their curiosities about wicked or complex problems that are in the world, and nut through what are some ways that we can tackle the issue, particularly for those students to be introduced to different ways of thinking of those issues so that they can weave that into how they tackle those wicked issues. That was the concept behind the program, and I hope that we have created something that has allowed students to unpack it from different perspectives and different ideas, but also bring their particular issue or uh, social phenomenon that they're interested in, wanted to continue to delve into. We do focus on a lot of different wicked problems, from homelessness to entrenched poverty, to the fentanyl crisis, to sexual violence, to the well-being of children. But really, we are also dependent on the students themselves to bring those wicked issues into the space so that we can better tackle it, understand it, look at it from different perspectives, and hopefully come to some kind of ideas anyway, or generate ideas about how we might tackle that in new, innovative, and effective ways. Oh, and you've given me control. Okay, thank you, Ariana. I could just keep going on. We do have options here. The MA is a 2-year program. It's 36 credits. It is a blended program, so it's mainly online, but we have 2 opportunities to come in person on campus for 2 weeks each year. And we just finished up our first residency for a new cohort. Students find that this is, I think, and we'll check in with our alum here, but find that that's a good way to really build connections, to build hopefully a safer space to really dig into some of those complex issues during that time in person, which hopefully also supports conversations and discussions while people are online. For students, we have 3 different completion options. So the first year, all the courses are set, and they focus on a range of issues, trying to understand and come to some shared language around issues of justice in order to then be able to look at different concepts, issues, topics within justice studies. But in the second year, we allow a lot more flexibility for students to really dig into the areas that they best want to do. For those students who want a lot of new information and are still kind of soaking that in, we have course selection. So they can continue to take courses alongside some of our other MA programs within our school and draw on further information, knowledge approaches. We also have the idea of doing a internship. So if you want to get on the job training alongside your degree, that is one of the options. You would take an internship course, which is worth the equivalent of 2 courses, and you would take 1 elective course in addition, and then come back for a final wrap-up course to summarize your learning. The third option is to do a thesis. So if you are independently motivated and have a good question in mind, this is a good option for you to delve into your own research alongside a supervisory team. If the MA is not for you, either at the beginning or through your studies, we also have the graduate diploma, which is essentially half the program. So that first year of the program. So it's 18 credits, takes a year. It is also blended, and this one has a 2-week residency, but only one in that first year. As I mentioned, we also have a BA program, which is a degree completion program. So it is focused on the final 2 years of a 4-year degree, and it has 2 options, whether you are doing it on campus, which is a condensed version in 1 year, or a 2 years blended program. Am I telling you more? I am. This is just giving you a little bit more of a focus on the program itself. As I said, 3 options. That first year, you're looking at foundations of transdisciplinary justice, where you're getting on the same page with your cohort, having some shared language, delving into a few different understandings of justice, and really digging into that concept of transdisciplinarity. Second course, you're looking at current issues in justice. This is a residency course, so this is when you're coming in person. This is a great place to look at a whole range of different topical issues. We have indigeneity in justice, which is also a residency course running concurrently, to focus on contemporary issues within the Canadian context, and ways in which we can really support decolonization and indigeneity. We also want to give you some foundations to research for all of our students, whether or not you're going on to do independent research. So we have a foundations of research course. And then the last 2 courses for the graduate certificate are case studies. So again, this is giving you a little bit more scope and space to dig into particular case studies and apply the concept of transdisciplinary justice into that space. And then transdisciplinary approaches to social justice, which is the second residency. And then you go into your second year, where you're either going down the thesis track and taking an advanced research course and then doing your independent research, or you're doing course-based track, where you choose 3 electives and then come together for a final short paper course, or you're doing internship track, where you're doing an internship, 1 elective, and then coming for that final short paper course. If you have any questions, please do just pop them into the chat function, and Ariana and I can try and think of some of the common questions we get. But if we're thinking about why justice studies, I think that, as I said, justice is a concept that is kind of a social glue that holds us together across different cultures, different contexts, different histories and knowledges. And it is therefore something that it's worth really kind of digging into and drawing on interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary approaches, but looking at issues of justice and injustice from different perspectives. And I'm going to put that question also to our panel today. Within the program, we really are focused on supporting your ability to focus on systemic thinking, to think about justice more than just the criminal justice arena. It's not just about crime, it is more about how we structure and live our social lives. So in that, we're building on critical analysis, you're building on your research skills, we're building on taking and integrating different disciplinary ideas. We're looking at advocacy and problem solving, and hopefully the students that come to us are coming from a variety of different backgrounds, but they go on to do a variety of different things. And this is really across public, not-for-profit, private sector jobs, military law, policing, corrections, public policy. Because we are looking at social, community, and justice services, we're also looking at social and health research and policy and corrections. So that is really the program in a nutshell. But I want to kind of pass this over to our alum. I have pre-suggested a couple of questions for them, but please share what you want to share. The two questions that I had asked ahead of time is, why is justice studies relevant in today's world? And the second one is, how have you used your learning from the program? So maybe we can just start with, why do you think justice studies is relevant, or maybe you don't?
Okay. Hi, my name is Lis Kingsley, and I'm speaking to you from the Halhuthi lands of the Tloquit First Nation people in Tofino, BC. For me, when I look at justice studies, it was a real introduction into today's world. The professors, the course, the curriculum helped me to understand a better understanding on the breakdown of how fairness and equality and the law functions every day in our lives. And by law, we don't just mean the typical law. It could be financial law, it could be criminal law, it could be the law of governance or the law of business. And so sometimes we need to look at that to see how to make it better, but also to help us understand how sometimes those laws fail and what that looks like to those people that are supposed to be supported through the laws that we work in. One of the biggest strengths of justice studies is it's not just about law in the traditional sense. Justice studies is about how we look at the law affecting people differently based on things like race, gender, income, immigration status. It asks important questions, and it's our job to look at those questions and understand how can we change these systems and make them just for everyone. For me, because it's an interdisciplinary field, it means that the perception of justice can incorporate ideas from sociological or political sciences, criminology, psychology, physiology, and even environmental studies. So this makes justice very flexible in the real world and relevant to many, many areas of interest. For example, if you're passionate about climate change, which is a big thing right now we're talking about, that takes you into environmental work. If you're very interested in law enforcement or policing, it takes you into all kinds of, political sciences and talk about addictions and homelessness or criminalities. Or you might be interested in the technology situations that are going with all the frauds and the scams. So then that takes you to digital privacy or surveillance justice, right? Because there's always this question around how much do we control our own privacy? Another reason it's important is because everything that's happening in the global world today, from movements like Black Lives Matter, for example, to debates about current immigration process, these are hot topics right now, to housing issues and homelessness, addictions and refugee rights, to discussions about police reform. These are all justice issues to consider. But besides that, justice studies opens a lot of meaningful careers for people. So whether someone wants to go into the wide variety of law-related positions, like public policy and social work, advocacy, there's also emergency response, there's human resource, there's community engagement and organization. All these things require a perspective of justice and how you can be just through your interactions of these things. The one last thing for me is that when you, even if you're not sure what career you want to go into, studying justice sharpens your critical thinking and your understanding of the world and your ability to speak up for what's right. Many people have a fear about speaking up for what's right. So justice study is more than just an academic discipline. It's a call to engage in the world in a thoughtful, informed, and purposeful way. In an era marked by deep social division, rapid change, and growing demands for accountability and equity, The study of justice provides essential insights and fosters skills needed to be an agent of change in today's world. Whether one speaks to reform the criminal justice system, or advocate for marginalized communities, or shape public policy, justice studies offers an intellectual foundation, and ethical compass, I think, necessary to navigate and transform some of the complex things that we see in our world. That's why I think justice studies is relevant.
Liz, that's beautifully said. Thank you so much, and comprehensive. Um, Hiyat, did you want to pipe in and share your thoughts on why justice studies is relevant today?
Sure, that's going to be a hard one to follow up after Liz. But thank you. I agree with everything that Liz mentioned, and so I'll try to not duplicate in my answer. But when I think of why justice studies is relevant, I think about our really our like community with others, our ecology with others. I think about how justice, or sometimes injustice, affects everybody, and how in individual ways everybody affected by some type of injustice has a greater impact on others around. And so when I think about justice, I think about how it makes us aware of our connection to everybody else, and how when I first was deciding what I would go into, I searched really hard for a program that met kind of the criteria I was looking for. And what I was looking for was not a program that didn't just speak to legal justice, for example, because that's just one area of justice. Justice for me is a very philosophical idea. What is justice? Is it achievable? Kind of those questions. And because I have a background in philosophy, I'm very contemplative of what it even is, and could this particular program answer those sort of deep and complex questions. And so getting into justice studies opened up new ways of thinking for me, right from the very first course, from the very first textbook that we were required to read. I was like stuck on, page 5, reading and rereading, going, wow, I never thought about it that way. And I still go back to those textbooks, and I still go back to those ideas of what justice could be, because it opened up ways of thinking that I didn't necessarily have at the time. So, so when I think about why it's relevant, it's injustice is something that recurs in history constantly, every day, on so many different levels for so many different people. And so no matter what it is that you're going through, there's an affect associated with it. There is a deep, sometimes physiological, affect that it is you're feeling. And so, and injustice is a deeply private thing for a lot of people who, unfortunately sometimes experience. So I think that it's relevant to study justice because it's a gateway to self-understanding. And through, I believe, self-understanding, we can also encourage understanding in others just through the ways that we think and speak about justice. And that, I think, creates some of that positive change that we, need. And that's kind of required in a world that's, always changing and always kind of repeating, with injustice. So when I think about why it's relevant to study, I think, how can you not want to study it? It is so everywhere. Yeah, that's my thoughts.
Fantastic. Thank you. How can you not want to? Derek, did you want to weigh in?
I don't know what else to say. Those are very wholesome answers. I think I will just draw the distinction between justice studies versus criminology or other types of programs. And I think many folks may approach justice studies like they would for the same way they do criminology or sociology. And I think it's a little bit broader than just like everybody has already alluded to. It's less about explaining why crime happens, but more about explaining the interconnectivity, intersectionality of people. And through people's interactions, understanding how to solve and potentially maybe not solve, but understand the complex, wicked issues, if you will, of society and time. And I think that's where the transdisciplinary approach of the program really shines. It engages a different aspect of thinking. It's less so about how we used to think about one or two partners, but how do I push out to partners that I don't typically think of when we're trying to solve a problem? And that falls into, as Liz was previously talking about, falls into health, falls into homelessness, addictions, mental health, financial crimes, issues, et cetera, et cetera. So it's, I would say justice studies is not, how do I put it this way? It's not a area of study, more so it is a way of thinking, if that makes more sense. Because I think the courses that we do in the master's program, and I can't speak to the graduate diploma or the other, but in terms of the applicability or usefulness of this master's program, I think is very high. I think especially for those who are working in policy fields, NGOs, government, even private sector, I think that's where the usefulness or return on investment is. It's a way of thinking and framing questions and issues, and less so about trying to fit things into a theory, if you will.
Fabulous. Thank you. It's very heartening for me to hear all of these perspectives and how they weave together the idea of focusing on interconnections, on building new partnerships and framing different ways of thinking about an issue, and a call to engage in the world, sharpening our critical thinking and advocacy skills for meaningful careers, and embracing the diverse thinking within our communities and our societies. This is heartening for me to hear, because I think over a decade ago, when Professor Michael Young was thinking about creating this program, and we had some of those early conversations about what it could look like, that's precisely what he had envisioned. So great to hear. Kind of taking that into the more practical elements and the applicability that you just talked about, Derek, you're still on my screen, so I might go back to you in the reverse order and say, have you used this? Have you used the skills in the program? And if so, in what ways?
Okay, yeah. I have absolutely used the skills obtained in this program. And I will speak from personal experience. The master's program actually got me to where I am today. So the courses and the skill sets got me, for those who are going to be watching this later on, thinking about it more as a career progression and how do I, utilize or exploit my education for furthering my career. I can tell you from my personal experience, anecdotal as it will, as it may be, it absolutely did. So I am a director currently within the provincial government for the Ministry of Public Safety and Solicitor General, and my portfolio is a provincial level one, deals with intersectionality between Indigenous peoples and public safety and policing. So when we think about the skill sets that are learned, like I was saying earlier, the program is more of a way to think and explore problems and issues, and less so about theories. I've been able to, take advantage of classes within the program, such as advanced policy analysis, to kind of understand how to implement or create or analyze policies or recommendations for not only myself, my area that I directly oversee, but elected officials and senior executives within government who are decision makers when it comes to the implementation of new policy. That type of experience, even at academic initially, was very helpful in being able to have well-rounded recommendations and well-rounded understanding of how both the upstream and downstream effects of policy implications could be when you go out and do this type of work. But I think I will selfishly also say, because of this program, I was also able to get into the Doctor of Social Science program at Royal Roads. So for those of you who are watching this, I am a hat trick, if you will. I've done all my studies at Royal Roads. And a plug for Kathleen, she was one of my professors in my undergrad in the bachelor's program. And she actually influenced me quite a bit during my undergrad into the career pursuits and academic pursuits that I've done thus far. So if you're looking for a program that has a good program head and faculty that really cares, you are not going to find a better program than the ones that are offered at Royal Roads generally. But specifically, the MA of Justice Studies will help you look at some of the issues that you may be confronted with in the workplace in a different way, in a way that is more flexible and far more inclusive than you may have previously. And I think what is really good about the program too is that it doesn't teach you step by step on what to do. It teaches, again, way of thinking, and always ways of thinking is more valuable than a step-by-step checklist of what to do, because we cannot account for every single issue or problem that we may encounter. But teaching you how to fish is way better than giving you a fish. I'm not a fishing person, so I will just go with that. I'll agree with that part. So I'll turn it over to any other colleagues that want to kind of add into that.
So I guess if we're going in reverse order, I'll go next. So the question is, how have you used your learning from the degree? And I have also used my master's as a way to get into my PhD program that I'm currently in now. Had it not been for getting this master's, I wouldn't be able to be doing what I'm doing now. And at the time that I was considering this program at this university, Royal Roads, I was looking for a program that kind of married my my career before, my education that I had. And so I came from working at the Provincial Criminal Court for nearly a decade as a judicial clerk. And then I did that while I was doing a philosophy undergrad. And then I went on, instead of taking law, I went on to become a teacher. And so I had these two degrees, but there was always this interest in justice, which probably was born out of my work at the criminal court. And so I saw in real time with real trials happening how justice / injustice affected real people in those moments. And so it kind of nagged on me, all of these things. And because of my philosophy background, I have always been interested in these wicked problems, if you will, these deep, complex issues that surround us every day. And so this program really met the requirements of what I was looking for in order to understand maybe what what is our legal system? What is meant when we say justice? What is justice? Do people experience justice? If so, how? And so this program really allowed me to explore all of that. And as Derek mentioned, it's a way of thinking, which is very valuable. And I chose to do the thesis route. And I did that just in case I maybe wanted to do a PhD. I didn't know at the time, because coming out of, any program, you're like, oh my goodness, I'm so glad to be done. I never want to do this again. And then something pokes at you and you're like, are you really finished though? And you're really not, some of us. So here I am in this PhD program, all stemming from these big complex questions I had that the Masters of Justice really helped me to think through. So it kind of moved from my topic at the time, writing a thesis, which was really great practice for now writing a dissertation for my PhD, and kind of what that process looked like, because you have to defend and you have to do all of these things. So I was set up really well with a lot of amazing supports in order to do what I'm currently doing now. And so what I chose to do was to take my topic that I wrote my thesis on in the Masters of Justice program, and I found an area that was still so fascinating for me that I continued to ask more deeper questions about. And so with that, that became my topic for my PhD. Had I not gone through the Masters of Justice program, I never would be in a position right now to be exploring all of these other complicated, wicked problems that we are real life faced with. So that's how I've used it. I think I will continue to use it because, as we've mentioned, it's just a different way of thinking. It's a way of making your way through the world, and trying to figure out what it is that you're seeing happening all around you. And it's like, okay, I'm understanding things on a different level here. So yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you both, Hiyat and Derek. That's amazing to hear. Liz, did you want to say something?
I think for me, it's and I agree with both Hiyat and Derek that this program was very fulsome in how it brought and developed the ideology around intersections of things. We got to work with some really amazing cohorts, amazing teams of people that came from every walk of life and every age group and every experience and background. And that gave me anyway, much more detailed concept of the different things that we were talking about and considering. What I might not know about one subject, somebody else might know a lot of. Or we would feed off each other in the classes, and we would have a real consideration on how we drafted teamwork and paperwork together. So how does that help? Well, once you leave your schooling and you step out into the work field, the dynamic is that you rarely work alone, and that you work with other people from many diverse backgrounds, and you need to develop a more colorful thought process to be able to be mindful and considerate of the different venues that come forward before you. So for me, I found that the knowledge and the perspective I gained at Royal Roads for both my BA and my MA, which I did both there, was incredibly valuable through every stage of my journey. One of the things for me was I was working in a legal team, not as a lawyer, but as a law clerk, and I did paralegal work. And I kind of stepped away from the small office and I went to work for government. And in government, I went back into legal, and I worked with the Attorney General's office, where we looked at everything from highways to Indigenous studies to, oh my God, the gas shortage in BC, and then the highways being broken and the farmland being flooded. And there was just so many things that happened in there, and so many people and issues and situations that we had to deal with. And what happened for me was it sparked a desire in me to be part of something more grounded and connected to community. So that led me into where I am today, which is I work with the local First Nation, and I am a non-status person working within an Indigenous community. There's a real learning curve there in the sense of culture and background and understanding and care, and patience and compassion and empathy. And you learn a lot about this in your Royal Roads program, because some of the speakers that we have had come forward, some of them were military people, some were professors, some were lawyers. We had a wide variety. And one thing that seemed to come through a lot was people's compassion and concern and care for what their field of work was. And while you might, as an individual, never considered that field of work, it certainly opened and expanded your mind into what that looks like. So when I came to Delokiat First Nation, I put on this hat of human resource, and quickly realized that it wasn't just the typical human resource, here's some policy and here's some paperwork. It was about the people. It was about community. It was about justices, injustices. It was about education and kids. It was about daycares. It was about elder supports. It was about so many things. And a big part of what shaped me on my journey with my time at Royal Roads, one of the most impactful experiences, like I said, was the chance to work along the many colleagues and cohort that I worked with. Some of the amazing professors that I had that really supported me when I got lost, especially with APA. I'm just saying. You know, I think what I took away from that was that it helped me to realize that justice is not just a legal concept. It's something that shows up in all areas of life, from policy to education to health and to everyday relationships. The perspective that I've learned from Royal Roads has stayed with me, and continues to guide me in my work now. So my justice degree gave me an academic foundation. But what it really gave me was a personal and compassionate perspective to help me work in the environment that I have, and to be more open and reflective and collaborative professionally. Qualities that I rely on in my work every day.
That is absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, all three of you. I'm humbled to be in this audience. It is really, really lovely to hear your perspective, why you think this is an important area of study, and what you've taken from it, and where you've gone with it. I think it provides good inspiration for others who might want to go down a similar path. Did anyone want to add anything else before we turn it back to Ariana?
One small thing. Don't be afraid of cohort study. Don't be afraid of working with a team. Yes, you will find some challenges. Yes, you will meet fantastic people from amazing places who have wonderful thought process and idea. Be open and be accepting and welcoming. And in doing that, you'll get so much more out of your program than you would anywhere else.
Thank you. I think, Liz, that's an important point to say, that it's not going to be easy necessarily, and you might have some disagreements with someone, but that is actually often a good space for deep learning, right? Is those places where you don't quite connect, or you don't quite agree with someone in a cohort, but it just opens up, I think, opportunity for self-growth and learning.
It's good to be accountable, but it's also good to be acceptable. And by that, I mean accepting of others' thought processes and ways. I've always said that there is no one way to do something. There's more than one way to do something. Be open to the different ways that there are. You might learn a new path.
Okay, well, I will jump back in. That was amazing. Thank you so much, everybody. Yeah, really makes me proud to work at Rural Roads when I hear things like this. So just hats off to all of you. It was really amazing to hear. For folks listening, if you're super excited about this program, like I am, I'd love to tell you a little bit about how to apply. So if you are thinking of joining us in any sort of intake, even if it's not the next one, maybe somewhere down the line, we'll just go over a few points on how to apply. So at Rural Roads, we have two ways of admission. We have standard admissions and we have flexible admissions, which is something that I really love about Rural Roads. So standard admission for this program looks like a 4-year or comparable undergraduate degree, which is pretty standard across many universities. We ask for a minimum GPA of a B+ from a recognized post-secondary institution. And you'll see the asterisks. There's all kinds of fine print, especially if you're reading this on our website. There's, many asterisks to consider. You'll see relevant and related. It's defined by each program, and it's up to you to kind of bring that forward when you're writing, say, your personal statement, which I'll touch on in just a second. Really, highlighting why is this degree relevant and why do you want to continue? So just a quick note on that. Of course, more details, again, is on our website, or we have our wonderful friends and enrollment services that you could chat with about those fine details as well. I mentioned flexible admission. So if you do not meet the degree requirement, or sorry, if you meet the degree requirement, but not the GPA requirement, you will be required to have a minimum of 5 years of professional experience. Or if you do not have an undergraduate degree, we normally require you to have 10 years of work experience in a leadership or management position, or an equivalent combination of education and experience. If you are admitted under flexible admission, you're required to complete a course called Academic Writing and Critical Thinking, which many folks do say it's very helpful for their journey, especially if you have not been in school or it's been a while. So that's just a requirement to consider as well. I'll also mention this is assessed on a case-by-case basis. So this is not something that you choose when you apply to Rural Roads, like, yes, I want to be admitted under flexible admission. It's just you bring forward all of your experience and our admissions advisors will choose accordingly. Okay, so just a quick note as well, our language requirements. So English is the primary language of instruction and communication at Rural Roads. So if your primary language is not English, you can meet this requirement through one of 3 ways. So you can either hold a recognized credential from an English speaking country, you can submit an official English language proficiency test score report. It's always a tongue twister, that one. Or complete one of our Global Learning and Language Center programs as well. So 3 methods for you to choose, and you'll see we have the link on the screen there. So if you are curious about any of those language requirements, please do take a look online. I don't believe we have any questions, but I do have a slide for questions to type in the chat. But just moving right along to how to apply. So if you are curious, the first step here, folks, is an online application fee. So at the moment, it's $136.69, so something to consider before you apply. We also ask for some supporting documentation, so things like official transcripts, if you have them from post-secondary, a detailed resume, so going into detail about what is your work experience, your life experience, volunteer, really going into those details so we can get to know you better. The personal statement, which I mentioned, I kind of like to describe this as like a cover letter if you were applying to a job. It's really going into detail about who are you, why do you want to apply to this program, what kind of relevant experience do you have, what do you hope to get out of the program, and again, more on that on ruralroads.ca. 2 letters of reference, those can either be academic or professional from your workplace, and then English language requirements, again, as I mentioned too. Okay, so some key dates coming up here. It will be October before we know it, because alarmingly, we are in May somehow. It's almost the summer. So if you are thinking of applying, please do get your documents in and start the process sooner rather than later. That's always helpful. And applications are assessed kind of on a rolling basis. So they just keep on going. The start date for that as well is January 12th, 2026, which again, will be here before we know it. So get those documents in. And some services that are available, my dear friends, at Financial Aid and Award. They have wonderful resources. So things like bursaries, scholarships, loans, emergency funding, student research scholarships, all kinds of things that's available to you. You can browse through those again on railroads.ca. I feel like I say that about a million times during these railroads.ca. It's the resource for everything. And their friends at Enrollment Services as well. I see Andrea's here. Hello. Wonderful, wonderful people over there. If you want to chat about your program options, if you want to ask questions about your application, if you want to talk with amazing students or alum like the folks here, they can set you up with that. So I know Andrea's popped the link to book an online advising session, sorry. Or you could also contact them by email. So learn.more@railroads.ca. Or if you want to give them a call, there's some phone numbers for local and for toll-free for North America on the screen.